last 20 years, almost all of the manufacturing of clothes and computers and almost anything you buy, but increasingly also things like food, is coming from somewhere else. It was in the 1990s when companies began to be aware of the fact that not only were goods coming from somewhere else, but they had really no idea what was going on in the factories where these goods were being made. Our job is to go into those workplaces and find out what's really happening, and then bring that information back to the decision makers in the companies. I think people don't always realize that every day they are touching something that came from somewhere else. Every day they are benefiting from the fact that people overseas who they've never met and whose lives they have absolutely no insight into are toiling on their behalf to either grow their food or make their computers or make the clothes or the shoes that they use. And this relationship that exists between us as consumers of goods and people overseas as producers of goods can either be a really positive one, because people overseas do want jobs, and these can be good jobs, or it can be a really exploitative one. We work with the biggest companies in the world and those who are among the best known brands in the world. They could come to us because they've received report from some labor union in Mexico, because they hear about violence in the workplace, because they hear of workers in China who've worked 31 days in a row, 14 hours a day. Or they could come to us because they themselves have done investigations into their workplaces around the world, and they realize they have intractable problems that they don't know how to solve. And they'll come to us and they'll ask us to help them solve those problems. Often in our work we have to bridge cultures. We work through local organizations. All the folks we have in the field who are actually going into the factories and going to the farms are local people. They speak the local languages. They understand business in the local context. But there's another kind of culture which we have to bridge, which is Western understanding of business responsibility and the lack of understanding of business responsibility that exists in the places where these goods and services are being made and grown. And so we have to have very creative ways of reflecting that and of making sure that when we go into a workplace in China, for example, we're talking about the issues we're dealing with in a way that this Chinese business can understand. And Chinese business can be very sophisticated, and Chinese businesses can be very simple and very small scale. I have a colleague in China, Wang Lia, who simplifies it for the businesses that we deal with. He goes into these factories and he basically introduces corporate social responsibility as the way in which we, as Verite, the brand that's buying from this workplace, and this supplier factory can make money happily together. It's a very simple concept. It represents that this is about business, it's about making money, it's about making money for the brand, it's about making money for the factory, and it's about making money for the workers. The vast majority of businesses around the world still are at a very basic stage of understanding of what we call codes of conduct. That is, that workers should be paid fairly, there should be transparency in how the workers are paid, that there should be no cheating, there should be no child labor, there should be no forced labor. Those sorts of things are what the code of conduct means. We're increasingly seeing a lot of businesses in Asia and in Latin America get that this is a better way of doing business, that they themselves are beginning to understand something that we have a bit of a head start at, which is if you treat your workers well, they're going to be more productive for you. And if you treat them well, they're going to stay longer, and there's not going to be so much turnover. And if you treat them well, they're not going to strike, and they're not going to disrupt your business. And if you treat them well, the government doesn't have to come and check up on you. All these things that are threats to the businesses themselves, and threats that a supplier business or a farm or a factory overseas wants to avoid. The next step is for us to tell them how, and to make sure that they have the skills and the knowledge and the capacity to do that in a way that meets international expectations. So Verite exists to solve business problems. It exists to solve the problems that businesses face, which are related to the ways in which people work in these facilities or on those farms.